Okay, guys, this is Chrystal Lynn, and this is my son Ethan, and we are back with part two. We are talking about addictions. We are also talking about astrology and how we can be influenced by certain planetary impacts in our life when we're born, but how we can overcome those, how we can work with those challenges. We were talking in part one about what happens when the sun squares Neptune in your birth chart. And I just read a little bit about it. And if you guys are not sure, go to your birth chart and look it up and see what are the squares, what are the trines, what are the different influences, because it's more than just your moon sign, your sun sign, your ascendant. Find out what was really happening in the universe when you were born, what influences. And we're talking about addiction today. And when you have Sun square Neptune in your birth chart, you can struggle with addictions. That is one pull. And my son Ethan's here to share a little bit more about that with us.
So we kind of left off was, you know, starting with alcohol, and we were kind of talking about, from the very first drink I had, I blacked out, and there wasn't. I can't personally remember a time that I had 3 or 4 beers and just had a day and didn't black out. I drank to blackout, and that's with everything in my life. Breaks down to just it doesn't have to be alcohol or drugs. Where we're kind of leading to is, I had lost my thumb in an accident, and I really didn't take a lot of Vicodins. I messed around with it a little bit, but when they were prescribed to me, it went from Vicodins to Norcos to Oxycontins, and real quick, I had an opportunity. A friend was in Connecticut, and offered for me to go out there and work and everything. And he had Oxycontins, and I got strongly addicted to those the 2 weeks I was out in Connecticut. And then when I came back, they were very hard to find, and I eventually got hooked on heroin, smoking heroin, and you know that just completely took my life down. That drug is probably one of the worst ones there out there, where you don't care if you're around your family or you have anywhere to live or anything. I lived in my car, and my whole goal was just to get loaded. And my family didn't want me. Not that they didn't want me around, but out of fear of me being around because of the person I became. And it wasn't necessarily me, but it was what I became on the drug. Um, you know, um, it's one of the hardest things for me to quit, to do. And what it took was, AA. I remember my first day sober, should I say, was the day after my mom's birthday. And I had gone through detoxes and 10-day detoxes, and, I was in a 6-month rehab I stayed for 60 days. And I had smoked weed when I came out, and I thought one more time I could just smoke weed and, not drink or not do other things. And if you're ever having that thought in your head, it doesn't work. I'd already tried it and it didn't work. Um, so I had been kind of looking for it and just kind of had a bad day looking for it. And we finally found it. I was with a friend in the big circle, and it started on my right, and I was going around, and I was thinking to myself, just through my head, I'd like to get a bottle. I'd rather, if I, because you can't drink when you're on heroin. I wasn't, so I was like, I haven't really got a good drunk in a while. And I was like, well, I wonder if my heroin dealer's still around. And then, I'm like, well, I'm thinking about smoking this weed, and I'm thinking about just everything that I could do just to get blacked out. And I hadn't even smoked that day yet. I was still sober, and it was just relaxed my mentality for that. And when it finally came to me, I passed it up. And the funny thing was, we've been looking for about 3 hours, and my friend kind of looked at me like, what's up? But he actually didn't say anything because there were so many people around. And when we left there, I asked him to take me to a meeting, and that was my first day sober. It just, something clicked that I can't do anything because, I thought maybe if I drink like this person who isn't an alcoholic, or I'm sorry, drink with this person who isn't an alcoholic, I can drink like him. Right. But after that, I would leave. Or I thought, just smoking weed or just drinking beer or just a few, and it never worked, not once for me. So at that point it just clicked, and just if you do have an addiction and you are struggling, that AA is a wonderful place to go, and not everybody's perfect there. There's a lot of nuts in there, so don't take your first impression if you do go in there off of the people in the room. Find somebody solid, and remember that higher power is one of the biggest things in the program, along with the 12 steps and that.
Yeah, that's a really powerful testimony. And I know as your mother, it's kind of interesting because over the last few years that I've gotten into astrology and just started to realize is that, I remember being a little kid and just intuitively worrying about you, seeing that you were kind of drawn to, like I said, we tried to raise you with the perfect little life and give you everything, but yet you were kind of drawn to the kids who were, you know, getting into trouble, and you just had a pull towards them. And so, in reading about, and I read it in part one, if you guys didn't hear it, when the sun is squared Neptune in your birth chart, how all of this works. I think that we're still all trying to, figure out universally, but that the way that I see it, it's kind of like this door. Anytime we see Neptune is a planet that rules Pisces. And it's like you can see into another dimension. You are sensitive to spiritual things, but you're also sensitive to escapist behaviors. And it's kind of like this door that opens and it's going, come on in over here, come on in over here. Mm. And the sun is all about your ego. The sun, which Leo is ruled by the sun, but the sun is all about wanting to be special. Mm. I want to be special. I want to be different. I want to be something special. So when you take this desire to be something special and you square it, which creates tension or creates a dysfunction with Neptune that can be escaping, you look for, here's my ego. I want to be great. How can I do it through these behaviors? So drugs become this doorway to it's unfortunately it's a deception, but when you're specifically doing them, maybe this doesn't happen to other people, but you feel like you're Superman, you feel like you're special, so it's kind of feeding this urge. So
yeah, well, I mean, I don't want to go too far because I can go on for hours about all this, but as I was in elementary school, I was in the track with all the Hispanic kids, and I really fit in with that. And then even into middle school, I really just never felt like I fit in, and I might have, what I mean? I might have been fine if I just had more confidence, but I was always worried what people thought about me, what I mean? I never felt like, I always had a few friends, but I just never felt cool, like in the cool crowd or certain crowd that I wanted to be in. So when I got into high school, and that I remember, the first time I drank was also the first day I smoked weed, and I instantly fit in with this crowd. I was instantly cool. I was instantly everything, and it just so happened that same crowd was, I'm an adrenaline junkie, was also, of that nature of that, So, I felt like $1,000,000. I was walking around school like, hey, what I mean? Just everybody was my good friend, and I felt like I fit in finally, and it just went in. Eventually, I got expelled, and I stopped caring about if I fit in as much and just about getting loaded. Mm-hmm. I had a few friends that rode dirt bikes and quads and stuff like that came over every day, and that's all I needed as long as I can get. And I found people that were like me as well. People that like to drink like me. People that like to smoke like me. I didn't have any, band friends or anything like that.
Well, and I think it's really interesting because, and I should have did a little bit more preparation before we started this, because this is just coming to my mind right now. But maybe those of you out there who like to do a little research, the sun was squared Neptune, okay, while you were born, but those things happen. Sometimes those transits will happen for several months, a year, You know, how long was that transiting? So it's very possible that not only you are having this experience, but the other kids you're hanging around with. Does that make sense?
Yeah, being in the same.
They had it
years,
too.
Yeah.
So here you've got this group of kids that may be all experiencing. If we could go back and do an interview and say, "What was your birthday?" and or see how far it was. In fact, any of you out there who want to do a little research for 1989, March 31st, 1989, the sun was squaring Neptune. How long was that happening for? That's what we need to know.
Yeah.
And then to find out, you know, how often does that happen? But your generation, the kids that were in your year, there's many of them that were experiencing that as well. And I think that's really interesting. You know, the other funny part about it was, you are an Aries ruled by Mars. So you were talking, we did a little video yesterday out in the car, we're having some fun, about how you're an adrenaline junkie. That Mars just creates that constant wanting to have impulse, you know, getting a high off of that.
Yeah.
So
and
not only do you get a high off of drugs, but you have the ability to get a high off of life.
Yeah.
And, so here it's why it's so important, if you are going to use astrology as a tool, to really understand these things about yourself. So now that you've been sober for 4 years, do you still find that need to, find where you fit in, feel special, and how can you do that in a healthy way?
You know, I own a moving business now, so I really fit in everywhere now that I'm sober and have a lot more confidence. There's, if there's somebody I don't click with, I don't hang out with them, and I don't worry about it because I have plenty of people, friends, and different things in my life. But where are we going?
That's the Aries ADD. Sorry, we had a little ADD Aries moment with my Pisces moon. Forgot what we were saying.
Yeah. No, really.
Well, what I think what we were saying is that you fit in now. You found a place to fulfill that.
Okay, and then, I definitely still get high off of life, and I definitely still struggle with certain things like smoking cigarettes and drinking Monsters and caffeine and different things in my life. Don't have to go into all of them, but none of them are drugs or alcohol. But I still have addiction deals. Everything I do, I want to do too much, to the max. I don't do anything lightly. I don't go into anything half-hearted. I don't, in my life. I love riding my quad, and I ride 1,000 miles an hour. Just to the edge of crashing and burning. And and when I started this business, I poured my life into it. And, just everything in my life. I pour everything for me, but in the same aspect, things that I do, I also am very, the other extreme as well, is I have 1,000 ideas in my head, but none of them really get started in things I want to do, and you need money to make money, so things I can't necessarily do. And
well, and I think that's funny because he is an Aquarius moon. So if you know anything about Aquarius, is they've got 1,000 ideas. They're inventors, but sometimes have a hard time getting them off the ground. So and he's Gemini Mars, so his mind must go 100 miles an hour. So I think it's really important that you're learning about yourself. I'm really proud of you that you're sober, and you're having to learn to do things within the context of a healthy way, even though you'll always have that pull to do things in extremes. Let's check our time. Okay, what is it? All right, we're at 14 minutes. YouTube only takes 15 minutes, so we're going to close. Do you want to do a part 3, or should we call it good? All right, we're going to do a little more for you, because you know what? There's some good stuff, and it's always save the best for last. So we'll be back, part 3.